Welcome to the 22nd episode of Latin American. Ugh. Welcome to the 22nd episode of Dark Academia Queen. I got a little bit ahead of myself there for a minute. If you, this is a sister podcast to True Crime Lounge, Sassy Southern Belle, and Just a Breezy Chat. If you're new here, hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications, and please hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about another subgenre in the Gothic fiction. And this draws Gothic themes of aesthetics and adapts to the political and geographic specificities of Latin America, and this is called Latin American Gothic. Um, and its origins can be traced back to the 20th century Latin American literature and cinema. It was in its first decades of the 21st century as it gained particular relevance in current history. So, what are the characteristics of Latin American Gothic? Well, it is general It is characterized by an appeal to the negative emotional response by confrontation when altering, and the negative transculturalism exercised in its Latin American variety doubles as the stakes for wintering both foreign and local elements, aliens. Now, themes such as the threat of the supernatural, intrusion of the past into the present, the blurred lines between science and religion, and the suppression of sexuality serve to unveil the spectrus and haunt Latin Americans' historical past and current political situation in order to explore the sources of fear and unease in its different countries and regions. And in this way, there are resources of Gothic fiction that make it address the issues such as genocide and indigenous people, class struggle, enforced disappearance, and patriarchal violence. So you're probably wondering, how did this subgenre come about? Well, despite being sometimes portrayed as a reputable phenomenon, the emergence of Gothic themes and topics in the 21st century Latin America literatures can also be regarded as a variation of a regional literary tradition woven into magic realism and the fantastic. And literary scholars argue that the circulation of European Gothic works in the 19th century Argentina, along with the proliferation of the pseudo-scientific and occult themes of the popular press, which led to local renewal of the genre, as witness for the authors such as Leopoldo Lugones, Eduardo Wild, Eduardo Holmberg, and most notably Horatio. I'm trying to remember. Kiorojo. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names, so please bear with me. The novel Lord Amortajado by Chilean writer Maria Luisa Bombal has also singled out the most direct antecedents in contemporary Latin American Gothic fiction. Her novel is narrated in first person by a dead woman in her coffin, touching themes of abortion and issues of power and submission, which was a major influence on Juan Rufo Pedro Paramo from 1955, in addition to being a precursor to magic realism, and also be credited in helping pave the way for the regional development of the Gothic. In the second half of the 20th century, some remarkable forerunners of this literary subgenre include the Macquarie and dark erotic short stories by Uruguayan writer Harmonia Somers, um, in the haunted house theme, novella La Mansion de Aracama, which Colombian author Avero Mutis wrote following a debate with the Spanish-Mexican filmmaker Luis Buñuel over the possibility of transposing the themes of English English Gothic fiction to a tropical setting. Now, who are some of the leading figures in this? Well, this is actually a predominantly female protagonist right here. The most widely known author in this is Mariana Enriquez, an Argentine writer whose works features disturbed women, sinister children, eerie physical environment to deal with themes of legacy and military dictatorship, the emotional consequence of exile, femicide, and police violence. She achieved this international recognition over the publication of the second book of short stories. For example, in 2016's The Things We Lost in the Fire was a bestseller and translated into more than a dozen languages, where she later won the Herel Novel Prize for 2019's Our Share of Light, and was shortlisted for a 2021 International Book Prize for Megan McDowell's English translation of the first book of short stories, um, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, in 2009. Ecuadorian writer Monica Aroji rose to prominence t- thanks to the critical acclaim and received for the novel Jawbone, which follows the story of a horror-obsessed teenage girl who is kidnapped by her literature teacher and was shortlisted in translation by Sarah Booker for a 2022 National Book Award. Now, in Ojeda's Ojeda, I think that's how you pronounce it, 2020 short story collection Los Voladores, in which she explores themes such as gender violence, abortions, sexuality, and religion throughout the lens of which can be defined as Andean Gothic. Giovanna Ribeiro is one of the most successful contemporary writers of native Bolivia, and her work began to gain international recognition since the publication of the book, from short stories such as Fresh Dirt, in the Grave, in which moves from horror to science fiction, and expand the boundaries of the Gothic to engage with pre-Columbian rituals and folk tales. Michelle Roche Rodriguez's novel Malser anyway, is a young girl from a Catholic and conservative family who becomes a blood-sucking monster in the 1920s Carcarus, and that was shortlisted in 2021. Colombian filmmaker Carlos Mahalo has defined the aesthetics as a tropical Gothic. And in the 1980s, Colombian filmmakers mm, called called this Cali group, Caliwood, coined the expression tropical Gothic to refer to the aesthetics of the film, in which the monstrous narrative set against a backdrop in the sunset, warm climates, and abundance of weather. And according to scholars, the tropics were fertile ground for the Gothic due to the history of violence and transculturalization that involves both myth and that they were brought into the region by European settlers in the colonial past, and an older belief system that is constantly in the process of being unearthed. Um, Luis Ospino was the director of the Puro Sangre, in which is one of the first Colombian vampire films for which the bloody flesh uses vampirism as an allegory to bleeding of the working class. Now, it's also seen in other forms of media, such as the Argentine visual artist Santiago Caruso, who illustrated covers of many works of Gothic horror and fantasy fiction, ranging from Alejandro Persianac, the Bloody Countess, to the Comte de Laurent, Lestrans, and Madra, and it has been described as a Gothic. Alright, that is it for this episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have an excellent day, and try and stay warm out there. I know it's hot.